This man is not insane. He has never been in any institution whatsoever. He's as sane as all of you people watching television right at this moment. And he does have a name. His name is Max. Max who, you ask? That's all you need to know at present. You know, this man is not crazy because there's a fine line between insanity and being a genius. This man is a genius. He's just different than anything that you've ever seen in Mid-South.
This is the one that cost him the Southern title, and let's just...
Well, look, it looks like Percival Pringle just went over into the audience, and he's coming back with a chair.
Professional wrestling has never shied away from the strange. Over the years, it's given us undead morticians, evil clowns, and even voodoo priests. But few characters were as truly bizarre or as overlooked as the monster from parts unknown named the Missing Link. With his wild hair, painted face, and animalistic behavior, he wasn't just a wrestler, he was a spectacle. More beast than man, the Missing Link didn't cut promos or chase belts. He smashed his own head into the turnbuckle, grunted like a prehistoric brute, and vanished almost as suddenly as he arrived. Yet behind the gimmick was a veteran performer whose descent into this wild persona reflected both the creative heights and personal lows of wrestling's most theatrical era. In many ways, the Missing Link is exactly what his name implies, a forgotten figure connecting wrestling's primal past with its performative present, a character. Born on February 28, 1939, in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, Byron Dewey Robertson began his career as an amateur wrestler and bodybuilder before entering professional wrestling in the early 1960s. Robertson debuted in 1961 in his native Canada and quickly gained a reputation for his athleticism and size. In the 1970s, Robertson wrestled primarily under his real name or as the Masked Crusader, becoming a regular in Canadian and U.S. territories, including Maple Leaf Wrestling, NWA Mid-Atlantic, and Mid-South Wrestling. He was mainly a tag team wrestler, partnering with random wrestlers throughout the territories with some success. He captured several regional titles during this era, including the NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Championships and the NWA Central States Tag Team Championship. But despite his in-ring talent, Dewey Robertson was not breaking into the top tier of wrestling stars. So, Dewey decided to follow a friend to Dallas, Texas, and become something new. It was in Dallas that Dewey Robertson tapped into something primal, a character that would redefine his legacy. This was the genesis of the Missing Link. By the early 1980s, as the wrestling world leaned heavily into over-the-top gimmicks, Robertson sought to reinvent himself. Robertson had a friend who had left for Dallas ahead of him, wrestling as the Mongol. Despite being told there was no room for any new wrestlers, Robertson hoped to impress the owner of the Dallas wrestling territory, Fritz von Erich, and form a tag team with his friend. Influenced by the increasingly theatrical landscape, where wrestlers like the Road Warriors and George the Animal Steele thrived, Robertson abandoned his clean-cut image. Shaving his head except for random spots in the front and the back, Robertson became the Missing Link, a bizarre, unhinged character who looked like he had stepped out of prehistoric times. Originally named Max the Missing Link, the character was presented as a mute, feral brute whose appearance and behavior made him one of the most visually striking and bizarre characters in wrestling history. He sported hair with a bald crown and wild tufts on the sides, giving him a distinctly caveman-like look. His face was painted in bold blue and green patterns that enhanced his unhinged presence. In the ring, he behaved like an uncontrollable animal, grunting, growling, and frequently smashing his own head into the turnbuckles. He rarely spoke, instead communicating through erratic movements and raw, primal aggression, which made him seem less like a man and more like a creature torn from another world. The Missing Link was put in the heel stable Devastation Inc., alongside Kamala the Ugandan Giant, and King Kong Bundy under the management of General Skandar Akbar. It was in this environment that the missing link truly began to take shape. Robertson refined his bizarre persona, developing strange mannerisms and a violent, unorthodox moveset that brought the character to life. But as often happens with deeply immersive gimmicks, the line between performance and reality began to blur. Robertson started living the gimmick, avoiding eye contact, staying silent in and out of the ring, and embracing the eerie detachment that defined the missing link. While this commitment added authenticity to the character, it also deepened his personal struggles using drugs and alcohol. The silence gave him cover. Intoxication could be dismissed as staying in character, removing any need to explain erratic behavior or maintain appearances. The act became a mask, and behind it, Dewey was unraveling. But despite his personal struggles, the missing link character was a hit. His commitment to the role and the sheer spectacle of his persona made him stand out in the crowded wrestling landscape of the 1980s. That momentum soon carried him to the biggest stage in the industry, the World Wrestling Federation, where he was poised to introduce his chaotic presence to a national audience at the height of the wrestling boom. Before any national TV appearances were made, the missing link found himself at the center of a high-profile Sports Illustrated photo shoot. The magazine was preparing a cover story on the surging popularity of professional wrestling, an issue that would feature Hulk Hogan on the front. To capture the colorful world behind the spectacle, a photographer was sent to Tampa, Florida, to shoot several standout personalities from the scene. With his wild hair, painted face, and unforgettable presence, the missing link was a no-brainer. His image didn't just make the magazine, it became the centerfold, a striking visual that captured attention across the country. Among those who noticed was a powerful promoter from New York, Vince McMahon. The missing link debuted in WWF in 1985 with the legendary manager Bobby the Brain Heenan at his side. While Heenan was the top manager in WWF, Robertson felt that the Brain didn't understand the missing link gimmick. The missing link was eventually handed off from Heenan to the Mouth of the South Jimmy Hart, who had recently made the move to New York from Memphis. But by then, the momentum was already slipping away. Dewey Robertson would later reflect on this period with regret, acknowledging that his own ego, fueled by alcohol and steroid abuse, had made him difficult to work with. He admitted that he believed he deserved a bigger push, and let that belief cloud his judgment. In the end, he walked away from the WWF, a decision he would later describe as one of the worst of his life. Without any memorable feuds, and mainly fighting against jobbers, the missing link left WWF in October 1985, just a few months into his run. Robertson eventually returned to Texas and World-Class Championship Wrestling, where the missing link turned face for the first time in his career. Not long after, he went back to the Universal Wrestling Federation for Cowboy Bill Watts. What followed were a series of short runs with struggling promotions, as the World Wrestling Federation tightened its grip on the wrestling world. He remained a mid-card attraction, still committed to the gimmick, even as the wrestling world began to shift toward more realistic, athletic-based characters by the early 90s. During this period, Robertson's substance abuse worsened. He became known for erratic behavior and struggled to maintain consistent work. Eventually, his in-ring appearances began to slow down. Dewey and his family returned to Hamilton, Ontario, where he began the long and painful road to recovery. He checked into a month-long rehabilitation program to confront his substance abuse issues head-on. After completing treatment, he took on his first-day job in decades and began attending therapy, where he was finally diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a condition that had gone unrecognized throughout his wrestling career. It was the beginning of a slow but determined effort to rebuild his life. Dewey eventually found work as a police escort, responsible for accompanying prisoners to and from various facilities throughout the judicial process and during their time in the correctional system. Many of those he escorted turned out to be teenagers, and through his conversations with them, Dewey began to see pieces of himself in their stories. young people who had taken wrong turns, but still had a chance to change. Moved by their struggles, he started speaking at 12-step meetings and addiction recovery groups. But it was when he began sharing his story directly with incarcerated youth that he felt he had found his true calling, using his own experiences to warn others about the destructive path of alcohol, drug, and steroid abuse. In 2006, Robertson published a brutally honest autobiography titled Bang Your Head: The Real Story of the Missing Link. The book recounts his rise in wrestling, descent into addiction, and eventual redemption. It was praised for its candid look behind the curtain of the wrestling world, especially during a time when many of his peers faced similar struggles with drugs, depression, and physical decline. Dewey Robertson passed away on August 16, 2007, at age 68, from lung cancer. His death, like his life, didn't draw many headlines. But for wrestling fans of a certain generation, the Missing Link remains an unforgettable figure. The Missing Link was never meant to be the face of a company. He was a supporting character in a larger, wild narrative, a monster whose presence made the heroes look braver and the world seem stranger. But in the grand mythology of professional wrestling, these lost characters often carry the most depth. Dewey Robertson gave his body and soul to the business and found peace, not in championships, but in helping others find a way out of darkness. In that way, the Link wasn't missing at all, just overlooked.